gobbled up all my yarn and I didn't have enough. I also, no way. I just don't really know, I don't really know how to do that. Me being a looser knitter in the knitting world specifically. Hey everyone, welcome back to Knits by Lizzy. I'm Lizzy, a vegan knitter from New Hampshire, and this is my knitting podcast, and we are on episode 2. So this is just gonna be a standard podcast episode, so I'll start with what I'm wearing, move into a finished object I have, discuss my WIPs, and a new cast on. So there's a lot of stuff to talk about today, so grab a cup of tea and some knitting, and let's get into it. Okay, so we'll start with what I'm wearing, which is the Poet Tee by Sari Nordland. And I cast this on June 8th and finished it on July 7th. And so it took me about a month to knit. And I chose to knit size 3, even though I should have been knitting size 1 just based off of the bust circumference. But the reason why I knit size 3 is because this pattern calls for, I believe it's 4mm needles, but I was actually using 3.25, so I had to go down quite a bit. And the reason why I had to go down a lot is because I'm a looser knitter, but then mainly because of the yarn I used. So I knit this in Barocco Modern Cotton DK, which is a cotton viscose blend in the color Piper. Which you can see is this kind of beigey color, which I chose because I wanted to show off this really beautiful lace pattern. Even though this yarn is called a DK, it's really more like a sport weight. And so when I used 4mm needles, which is meant to be knit with an actual DK, my swatch was way smaller. So I had to go down a lot of needle sizes in order to get the fabric that I wanted. So this is a size 3, and I did make a few modifications to it, mainly with the finishings. So normally this pattern is finished with I-cord edges all around, but I only did an I-cord on the collar, and this was the first time I had done an applied I-cord, and I found it really fun and a lot easier than I was kind of expecting. Like, it didn't actually take me that long. It was actually, I think it was the presidential debate was when I was working on this I-cord, so needed a distraction. So instead of I-cords everywhere else, I decided that I actually wanted to do folded over hems on these sleeves here because they're just stockinette. And I actually never done a folded over hem before either. And so what I did is that I just knit until the length that I wanted the sleeve to be, and then I went down 1 needle size and then knit, I believe it was 6 rows. I also have my Ravelry linked in the description below, so if you want the exact details on any of the patterns I talk about here, feel free to check out my Ravelry. So I think I knit about 6 rows, and then I bound off and then sewed it down. So I didn't do a purl bump row, which is, if you saw my last podcast, when I did the moonset tee, I did folded over hems as well, and not only did I go down a needle size for that, I also did a purl bump row where you'd be folding, but I didn't do a purl bump row for this, and in retrospect I should have, but like I said, it was the first time I was doing it, and I'm still happy with how they look. So I'll definitely put some footage on the screen here of me wearing it so you can see how that fits. And then you'll also be able to see better the other modification that I made, which is to the hem of this garment. And so I decided, instead of an I-cord on the hem, I ended up doing a ribbed hem. And at first I was thinking, oh, well, I should do a folded over hem because that's what I did on the sleeves, and having 3 different finishings on one garment seemed a little silly. But I was worried that because it's this kind of very loose lace, there's a lot of yarn overs to create this beautiful design, but that means that it doesn't have that much structure, and yeah, there's like all these holes here. And so I was worried that because it wasn't stockinette that I was then doing a fold over hem to, that the hem would want to flare out even more than it normally does on stockinette, and so I ended up not doing that. I also was worried about how long it would take to sew down a hem of the entire garment, because it took me a while on the sleeves, because I think I was sewing down literally every single stitch, and there's quite a few stitches because I used 3.25mm needles, and so I, to be honest, also just wasn't wasn't feeling that. So instead I did just a few rows of ribbing and then did an Italian bind off. So I didn't do any double knitting before the sewn bind off part, which I believe is the difference between a tubular and an Italian bind off. I still kind of get confused. So no double knitting before the bind off, and then just did sewn Italian bind off style, and I'm really happy with it. I was afraid, like I said, I was afraid that the 3 different finishings would be kind of make the garment not cohesive, but I still really, really love it. And the design is just so pretty. It's definitely one of those designs where it looks ridiculously complicated, but in practice, each row is not that much. Like, it's just knits or purls or knit 2 togethers or yarn over, something like that. And so you just follow the chart, and then you get this beautiful design. I will say though, this chart was something like 40 rows long, and so there was no way I was gonna memorize that. And so this isn't, if you're thinking of knitting this, at least in my experience, this isn't something that this isn't TV knitting, you know? So you have to, I was definitely looking at the chart literally every single row. However, like I said, it's not that complicated in terms of what you're doing each row, and so I only had to look at the chart for the row at the very beginning of the row. So it wasn't like I was looking at the chart for every single stitch, but I just needed a reminder of what was coming next for each row. I think I did something like 2.5 to 3 repeats of the pattern. You can tell by like how many of the little like leaf designs that you can see. So, you know, I was kind of looking at other Ravelry projects to see, counting like how many leaves did they do to try to find how long I was going to do it. But the other modifications that I did is just I cropped the length a bit, and definitely the sleeves I cropped a lot for this pattern. The sleeves in Sorry Nordland's project are, I believe, maybe just like a little bit shorter than your elbow crease, but I wanted really short sleeves. So when I'm wearing this garment, I actually had to go buy specifically a just like nude colored tank top to wear underneath it because of all of the yarn over holes, even though they're beautiful. This just, for me, I felt most comfortable when I actually had something underneath this. So that was one thing that I did have to go buy another piece of clothing in order to make this garment way more wearable so that I can, wear it to kind of like any sort of situation. But if I don't wear it with a tank top underneath it, it is fairly cool, like good for warm weather, because of how like kind of light and airy it is. But yeah, it's just so beautiful. I'm really happy with it. It's rivaling my porcelain sweater for my favorite knit ever. So that's a big deal because I really love my porcelain sweater. So I believe that's everything that I wanted to say about the Poet Tee. As always, if you have any questions about something that I've knit and discussed in this podcast, just leave a comment down below, and I'd be happy to chat about it if you're, for example, considering to knit this pattern and you have some questions. All right, let's talk about my finished object that I have. So if you watched my first podcast, you'll see that I actually cast this on only like about 2 weeks ago. So I cast this on August 3rd and I finished it on August 10th. So this only took me 7 days to knit. And part of the reason for that, you can see, is how ridiculously cropped it is. So this is not what I had originally set out to do, did not mean to make it this cropped when I cast this on. But as I said in my last podcast, I was using the leftovers of my Poet Tee, which I'm wearing right now. So the kind of cream beigey is Barocco Modern Cotton DK in the color Piper, and then the navy that you see is Barocco Modern Cotton DK in the color Hope. So the limiting factor here was actually the leftovers from my Moonset tee, and so that's these navy stripes here. So I started with only 19 grams of the color Hope, the navy, and it was like something like 70 yards like that. So it was way less than what you needed for size 1, which is I decided to knit size 1 because of my Game of Yarn Chicken, even though my bust circumference said that I should be knitting size 2. And also because when I gauge swatched for this, I used 3mm needles, which is the needles that are called for in the pattern, but my gauge was a lot looser than what is called for the pattern. So I was thinking, I can make a size 1 and then end up with a garment that's actually circumference-wise bigger than a size 1. So I was thinking that, because I'm knitting this small size, this might help me with my Game of Yarn Chicken, but I was very wrong, and I lost Yarn Chicken and ended up with this really cropped garment. So in the conventional sense, I definitely lost yarn chicken. It gobbled up all my yarn and I didn't have enough. However, I'm gonna declare that I beat yarn chicken because like I said, I would have never intentionally made something this cropped, but I'll put some footage of me wearing it so you can actually see how cropped it is and how freaking cute it is. And I got this product because of losing yarn chicken that I absolutely love, that I would have never actually made myself, or I would have never purchased something this cropped. So I think that I actually came out on top here. So also because I have this garment that I didn't actually intend to make, but that I love, I am struggling a little bit with how to style this. I really don't think of myself as a very like stylish person. Like I kind of just wear the same thing every day. I wear jeans and a top, but this is so cute, I need to be able to style it well. So I have a couple of ideas. One of them is that I could wear it with high-waisted jeans that are white, because I think that'll go well with the kind of beigey color in the beigey color in the garment. And then I could wear this denim shirt that I absolutely love. I wear it all the time. It's kind of like a cover-up sort of thing to go with it and kind of balance out all the other white. And I think that will look super cute for just like kind of going out. And then another idea I had was, of course, high-waisted black jeans. And then ideally, I think it would be really cute to wear with like a dark, like a black, probably not brown, but a black leather jacket or something, pleather jacket. But I don't have that. So instead, to go with the black jeans, which maybe are like kind of punk or something, I have this really bright pink jean jacket. You can tell I love denim. This really bright jean jacket that I also think would be really cute. And then the other thing I was thinking is that this like white and blue stripes screams 4th of July to me. This screams 4th of July to me. And also, like I said, it's really, really cropped. And so that would be perfect for July when it's really, really hot. So I could wear this cropped by itself with no like outer layer. And then ideally with red shorts, but I don't have red shorts. But what I do have are these cute Levi pink shorts that I got on sale for like $15. And I think the pink is enough red, it's close enough to red for me that I think this would classify as a really cute 4th of July option. So who knows, this might come out of my wardrobe an entire year from now for next 4th of July and be a superstar. So I'm going to Copenhagen for a week in a few weeks, and I was thinking that this top might be really cute to wear just kind of out and about. Because you know, like when you go on vacation, you always bring the clothes that you think are the cutest. Like you can tell which clothes you're most excited about by what you pack when you go on vacation. So I think this is gonna be on the list. So yeah, please let me know though what you recommend to style this garment, because like I said, I have a few ideas, but I don't really think very much about the outfits that I put on in the morning, to be honest. I just kind of have my kind of signature look and then I just put that on and then I go about my day. But I want to do it justice, so if you are way more stylish than me and have ideas about this, please put them down in the comments below and help me out. So the last thing I want to mention about this garment before I move on is, as I said, it's the Sailor Swift top by Veronica Lindberg, who is Katova Kika on Instagram and Ravelry, is that this pattern actually comes with a detailed tutorial on YouTube that Veronica Lindberg made. And so she shows you how to do these I-cord edges. She talks about how to help with jogs when you're changing colors for the stripes, and really just like goes through it step by step. And so that's a really great thing about most of Veronica Lindberg's patterns, is that she has YouTube tutorials. For example, the very first cable sweater that I did was by her, the Arctic Like sweater, because I knew that she had a really detailed tutorial for it and I had never done a cable before. I had no idea how to make it go left or right, and her tutorial like absolutely saved me, and now I feel more confident in knitting the next WIP I'm going to talk about, because I feel like she taught me how to do cables. So her patterns are awesome. If you're a beginner knitter, I feel like her patterns are awesome because of these tutorials, and this was so addicting and so quick. It took me 7 days to knit, and it maybe would have taken me like 10 or something instead if I had actually knit it to the length that it was supposed to be knit. But it was so addicting and so fun, so much so that I'm definitely going to be making another one, I think, next summer. I have some fingering weight cotton from Lion Brand. It's the Oh Baby yarn, something like that. it's discontinued, but I have quite a bit from a few years ago, and I have this olive color and a bright pink, and I think that it'd be really cute to have a olive color as the main color and then the pink as a contrast color to give kind of like early 2000s vibes. And then I have enough of that yarn that I could actually make it to the length that it's supposed to be, and I think that would be a really fun project to make, and the product I think would be really, I think the product would be really nice to use. So that's probably coming in my future. There's another Sailor Swift top in my future. All right, so now we're gonna move on to a returning WIP from last week, and this is the Billie Pullover by Sari Nordland, which I am knitting for my boyfriend who's going on a trip in a few weeks to Europe for work. And I cast this on July 11th, so quite a bit ago now. I'm knitting this on 4mm needles, but what's called for in the pattern is 4.5mm needles, just because my gauge was looser, I had to go down. So it's a pretty tight knit in terms of like it's got a lot of structure because you have a worsted weight yarn, which I'll talk about in a second, a worsted weight yarn on 4mm needles, so it's really sturdy, I think very, very warm, gonna be a very, very warm product. So the yarn that I'm knitting this in is Hobby Amigo XL, which is an acrylic from Hobby, and I'm knitting it in this gray color, and the suggested yarn for this pattern is Cascade 220, and Hobby Amigo XL, this worsted acrylic, happens to be the exact same meters per grams as Cascade 220, so it was a perfect swap. And I already had used, not Hobby Amigo XL, but the DK weight version of Hobby Amigo to knit other things before. And so I already knew that I really liked this acrylic, so it was a really easy choice. All right, so now I can show you the progress that I've made since last time. So last time I had separated for sleeves, but had only knit maybe like just a few centimeters, and so I've done a full skeins worth in the body, and then I decided to pick up for one of the sleeves after that, and I've knit about half a skein on the sleeve, so this is how much I've got left of that. So I've got a decent amount done on this, but his work trip that I initially cast this on for is in 2 weeks from today. And so I really doubt that I'm gonna be able to get it done in time for that. But I'm not gonna force myself to knit on this in order to get it done for that, because knitting is supposed to be fun. So I don't really force myself to knit on things I don't wanna knit on. I'm just gonna keep plugging away, and when I feel like cables, I'm gonna knit on this, which can be super fun. So I think that if I knit only on this and I really put a lot of concerted effort into it and knit a lot on it, that I could get it done, but I'm not gonna do that. So let's measure how much I've actually got done, and then I'll have my boyfriend throw it on, and so we can see how much more I have to do, which I think will even tell me more how much longer this is gonna take, because you know, it doesn't have to be a sweater for this work trip. He's fine with that. I'm fine with that. It could just be a fall sweater or a winter sweater, because I think it's gonna be super warm, and I think it would be really cute and really useful for when we go skiing here in New Hampshire, because it will be so warm. So he can use that as a layering piece under his big parka when we go skiing. So I'm gonna grab my tape measure and we're gonna do some measuring. First of all, I just want to show this really cute tape measure that I have. There we go. Isn't that fun? And it's retractable. Okay, let's measure. Okay, so I've done about 16 centimeters on the sleeve. And I bet it's about similar on the body, let's see. And I've done about 15 centimeters on the body. So pretty similar. And I found obviously that the sleeve was going way quicker, just because there's so much fewer of those waffly honeycomb cables on it, on the sleeve. And those ones tend to take me a lot more time, just because they're actually only, I guess I don't want to give away the pattern, but they're very few stitches that you move for each one. And so you're doing a lot of them to go across all the way. So yes, I've got about 15 centimeters on the 15 centimeters on the sleeve, and I'm 16 centimeters on the sleeve and 15 centimeters on the body. So the other thing I wanted to talk about for this project is that when I was editing the footage from last time, I realized that I had, oh yeah, I think you can see it really well. I had made a mistake like pretty early on when I was doing the yoke. So on this big twisty guy on the side, on the same round, I did it on the sleeves, on the front and the back, went the wrong way went the wrong way on the cable. So I am trying to decide how much it bothers me. Let's see if I can, I think it may be less obvious on the sleeve. I'm trying to decide how much it bothers me because there's no way I'm frogging all the way back to fix that, no way. But there might be some things that I could do to fix it. So I was looking through some Ravelry projects and there was a couple of people who had also made mistakes and then not realized it until much further. Got yarn going everywhere. Had not realized it until much further on. And what they had done is that one person actually intentionally dropped stitches and went all the way down to where she'd made the mistake and then was able to, I guess with a crochet hook or something, was able to put the stitches back to where they were supposed to be. I've only ever done that for stockinette, fixing stockinette mistakes or just like literally dropping a stitch, like I know how to put that back. But I've never done it for something this complicated, so that would be an endeavor, I think, to do. Like I would have to watch a lot of videos. Obviously it can be done, but it would take a lot of effort. And then the other thing that someone else did is that they did duplicate stitching over where the cable was going the wrong way and kind of made it look with the duplicate stitching that the cable was going the right way. And I have actually done duplicate stitching before because I made some Harry Potter sweaters for my family last year, like a bunch of Weasley style sweaters. And then I basically just knit a raglan sweater and then put their first initial on the sweater via duplicate stitching. And that took a while, but I was able to do it. So I know how to duplicate stitch, so that might be the way that I go, just because I think there's like the least resistance for me in order to do that. But I have a feeling that if I was able to figure out the laddering down, dropping the stitch, and putting it back to where it's supposed to be, obviously that's gonna look the best because in that sense, it will be like it never even happened. I just don't really know, I don't really know how to do that. If any of you have done something like that before, please let me know, because I need help. And part of me is thinking that maybe I should do that because then I could film it for you guys and we could all kind of figure it out together and maybe that could help someone in the future if they make the same mistake as me. So we'll see what happens. Please, if you have any opinions, let me know. I need some knitter knowledge help here. And I think though that, yeah, like I said, if I can't figure out how to fix it, I think it's just gonna be a sign that it was handmade and that there was a mistake, and then he can look at that mistake and know, well, Lizzy knit this for me stitch by stitch and it's not store-bought. So we'll see where that goes. I have a feeling I have got maybe like about a month more of work on this to do rather than 2 weeks. So I think this WIP is gonna be sticking around for a while because he's so tall. I'm gonna have to knit for a while. Maybe I'll put on here my estimate after him trying it on, how many more centimeters of the body and the sleeves and each sleeve I have to go. So obviously it just depends on how much work I put into it because I've been a bit more distracted after finishing the Taylor Swift top because of my new cast on that I'm really excited about that I'll talk about next. But that's been taking away some time from me working on this. But you know, I just knit on what's bringing me joy, and sometimes this brings me joy and sometimes the other cast on brings me joy. So yeah, let's talk about that one. All right, so my new cast on is the Monday Sweater by Petite Knit, which I have got a lot to say about the sweater. So first, we'll just start with the basic information. So this is just a classic, basic raglan sweater that is super popular, and that's part of the reason why I picked it, was because I had heard so much praise from so many people about how well this pattern fits and just how it's such a great pattern, and you can tell by how many Ravelry projects there are that people love this pattern. So I wanted to give it a go for this yarn that I had. And I am knitting the very first size, and I'm using 4mm needles, which is what it's called for, and the yarn that I'm using is Stylecraft Highland Heather's DK in the color Thrift, which I am definitely someone who loves purple. And so this really beautiful, heathered marled yarn of tons of purples was perfect for the Monday sweater, which is so basic, to show off this amazing yarn. So I knit a swatch for it, which I'll show here. There's my swatch. Maybe you can see the colors better there. So there's my swatch, and I just cast on the gauge of the pattern, which is 21 stitches, and then just knit for a while to measure it. And unfortunately, me being a looser knitter, this is not a 10 centimeter swatch with the gauge, with the number of stitches that's called for in the pattern. It's more like 11 to 11.5 centimeters, so way bigger. And based off of my bust circumference, if I was on gauge, I should be knitting the first size anyways. But because my gauge is looser, if I knit the first size, I'm going to get a super oversized sweater. And I actually don't even want the amount of ease that the sweater calls for, which is up to 20 centimeters of ease. I think I want more like 10 centimeters of ease. So my current plan is to cast on size 1, which is what I've done, and then just keep working those raglan increases until I get to a point that I think that it's going to fit me, and then I'll just either stop there or measure the yoke depth and then continue in stockinette and then keep going. So the main thing that I have to say about this before I actually show you my progress is the other reason that I'm making this sweater, which is I'm making it for the apple picking cow that Emily Curtis is hosting. And I have actually never done a knit along before, even though I've been knitting for almost 2 years, more like a year and 3/4, because I actually didn't have an Instagram until very recently when I made one for this podcast. So I was never able to participate in a knit along because pretty much they're all held on Instagram, not really on YouTube, which was what I was using before. And so since now I've made this knitting Instagram, which I'll put here in case you want to follow me, since I made this Instagram, I was able to participate, and this is just a really informal cal where the theme is make a sweater that you're gonna wear apple picking, and it's a group message of a bunch of knitters, I think like maybe even over 100, a bunch of knitters being super excited about their sweaters, and everyone has just been like so supportive, and there's so much just joy in this group message, and it's been so fun to share things with people and give advice to other people and get feedback from other people, and it is fill my cup so much. I wanted to get onto social media again in the knitting world specifically, to grow knitting community, to find knitting community, which I really felt like I was missing because I don't know that many people who knit, and I love knitting. I really want to talk about knitting and share it with other people, and here I am able to share it with other people. And so yeah, it's been great. And also this, I feel like this color says apple picking to me. Like, it's kind of, obviously it's purple, not red, but close enough. I feel like it will, it's check in the box for me. But yeah, so I'm knitting this for the Emily Curtis Cal. I will link her podcast on her Instagram down below in case you want to check that out. I don't know how long she's going to be adding new people to the knit along. At some point, I'm guessing she'll cut it off, but maybe not. Maybe you can join whenever you want. So you could just go to Instagram, check that out. It's been so fun. It's been so fun. Okay, now I'll actually show you what I've done. Okay, so it's pretty scrunched up because I think it's on, because I'm increasing a lot right now, it's on pretty small circumference cord. It's caught up to the size of the cord pretty quickly. So I have cast on, and then I knit the collar, and I have folded over that collar, and I actually was able to do a new folded over collar technique that she put in the pattern. And so I found that this pattern is really satisfying in the way that it's just like basic raglan, but there's all these like little details to make it fit really well, just make it a really nice sweater that I think are the reason why it's so popular. And so it's got this it's got a nice squishy folded over collar. It's a little bit shorter of a collar than I normally go for, but I decided I was just gonna follow the pattern and see how it goes. And then it's got some German short rows, quite a bit of German short rows, so I think it's gonna end up fitting really, really nicely. And then now I've just moved into the yoke. So I'm gonna measure how far into the yoke I am, and then maybe do a little bit of math and put on the screen how many, like what percentage of the yoke for size 1 I actually need to do in order to get a bust circumference that I'm looking for. Okay, so I've done some math. So my gauge swatch, like I said, was more like 11 centimeters instead of 10 centimeters. However, I actually want a sweater where my gauge should even be smaller than 10 centimeters. So in order to get this bust circumference that I want, which I think is like 95 centimeters total, I need to knit at a gauge, ideally that would be 9 centimeters. But instead, my gauge is around 11 centimeters. So I need to make a sweater that is about 80%, instead of 100%, about 80% of the size that I actually should be knitting. So I am going to knit until 80% of the yoke is done, of those increases are done, and then I'm going to measure and then put it on and then see what the circumference is and what the yoke depth is, and then test my fit that way. And so I think if I end up doing that before this podcast is published, I'll put a little footage in. If not, it'll be in the podcast following. So the other thing that's exciting about this sweater is that I am making a knit with me video for that. So make sure that you're subscribed so that you get a notification when that comes out, since I'm going to go through the process of knitting the whole sweater with you without obviously giving away any sort of stitch counts because it's a paid for pattern. But the process of me knitting it will become a little vlog, and I think it'll be the perfect type of video to just throw up while you're working on your own project. So we can just kind of knit together, which I think will be really fun. I also think that this sweater starts my fall knitting. I have officially moved out of summer knitting, even though it's still August, because I'm so excited for the fall. And so I will briefly mention this sweater and all of the other sweaters that I plan on knitting in my fall knittings video, which is going to come out after this podcast comes out. And so that's a whole other reason to be subscribed. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. Okay, so I think that brings us to the end with discussing my new cast on. So like I said, please let me know what you're working on in the comments and we can chat about all things knitting. And I'm gonna send lots of big hugs to all you guys, and I'll see you next time.